Hi guys, the Breakdown Rugby podcast. Welcome back to another episode. We're going to be reviewing South Africa versus New Zealand, and Jesus Christ, words cannot even begin to explain. I think 15 minutes in, 10 minutes in, we saw the difference in the side. It was staggering. South Africa taking a massive L. What do you think, Kieran?
I am disgusted by how the Box played, to be honest. It's embarrassing that all those 23 players put on the jersey today. They call it the A team, and that was just disgusting. I can't believe they even played the team, right? No set piece, no physicality, no tackling. The Faf de Klerk kicked out. Libbok just useless as per usual. And they still blame the ref at the end of the day. Where can you draw the line with mid-box keyboard warriors?
You know what it is? Like, starting off, like, that New Zealand front row, I think, did really well to deal with Kitsoff and Malherbe. Malherbe, I know his class, and I think in a big game like a World Cup, he will turn up, but he's been off it. I'll honestly admit he's been off it the last two games in terms of his set piece and getting that set piece dominance as well. And even looking at the lineouts, I think Bongi and Benambi. When Marks came on, you saw the difference. Marks knows how to peel off and attack when the ball's gone a bit dead, and Marks got a try as a result. But Bongi and Benambi sometimes doesn't know when to pull the ball out, when to go on a dart himself. And he's just missing tackles and stuff. And I think we were just really, really poor. New Zealand were 10 times better than us.
There's other players in the team. I mean, Jasper Wiese, big thing about him coming back. You know, you put him in your top 3/8s in the world. But where was he today? Literally nowhere. Faf de Klerk, people raving about he's in the top three nines ever, like all this bollocks. It's not true. He was useless today. Willemse just proved he's not a 10 today. He's a fullback, right? Then you get DLND, who did nothing but running into concrete walls all day and didn't look at anything good. Lukhanyo Am, we said about him coming back in the Rugby Championship, stamping his foot on this 13 jersey, the best 13. Gary Ringrose, for me, is clear now. Okay,
No,
Colby,
Kieran,
nobody
Kieran,
is. He is. And then there's issues. There's issues like Arenza not starting, Esterhuizen not starting. Grant Williams came on, looked way more dangerous than Faf de Klerk did the whole game inside 15 minutes.
Yeah, but Grant Williams looked more dangerous, I think, because Pieter-Steph, Du Toit, Snyman, and Dwayne Vermeulen opened up the game more. There was a lot more space for him to work with. He could snipe, he could dart more. Lukhanyo Am is still a world-class player, but realistically, as we've said, how, like, playing next to Damien Dialende and having Willemse at 10, he's not going to get the same quality of ball he would have, I think, if he was playing next to an Esterhuizen and a Pollard. I still think Lukhanyo Am defensively was immense. Eventually, I just don't think the opportunities came his way today. But to say that he's not the best 13 in the world, Kieran, for me, that is still baffling. That is disrespectful.
He isn't.
The highest regard.
He isn't.
Why?
No, he isn't. Rieko Ioane. For me, and I think a lot of other rugby fans that have watched this rugby championship will agree with me that Rieko Ioane, Gary Ringrose have now gone past like Lukhanyo Am, and I think it's ridiculous to say otherwise.
Kieran, I mean, I'm not saying Rieko Ioane had a bad game, but how was he significantly better than Lukhanyo Am today? I honestly don't think the New Zealand backline was the reason they won. I think they won because they beat us in the breakdown and they beat us in the set piece. That's the reason why they won.
No, they won. They won by keeping the ball alive. This is why when they got to the wingers like Mark Talia and stuff, you said he had a quiet game, I heard, but like I don't think he did. Like you got to Rieko Ioane and he opened up the space of both wingers. They stretched the South Africans apart. They pulled them from left to right, putting kicks in behind. South Africa didn't know where to turn to in defence. Because the boot there was chips going over the top, grubbers pinging him in the corners. They just didn't know, and that was because of the players like Rieko Ioane, Geordie Barrett, and Beauden Barrett, literally changing the way All Blacks created and attacked, and it was beautiful to see.
I understand you're talking about there being more space, but I think that's because they were sucking in more Springbok defenders. I think at points in that first half, we were overcoming to the rucks, and then you get completely short and you're short-handed. Then you have Colby dealing with 3-on-1s, Papimpi dealing with 2-on-1s. Then people like Rieko Ioane in those situations can be dangerous. I 100% agree. I do think going forward, though, like what you said, Damien Willemse is not a 10 whatsoever. And we've seen this today. I think we all know Damien Willemse is a class player when he plays at 15. You just have to look at those tests last year when he was actually allowed to play in his natural position and how lethal he was when he was playing in his natural position. But I think when he goes to 10, Leroux had to step into first receiver because Willemse, I think he's more so of a flashy guy. He doesn't really have that composure that like a Pollard's going to have or Sexton's going to have or a Mwanga's going to have at 10. Willemse doesn't have that at 10.
I completely agree. And moving away from mid-box because they were atrocious, let's move towards the All Blacks. I think Aaron Smith has found a second wind in his career. I think that player there is shown today he's world class. He's shown today he's still got it in the bag, and he's shown he can still run a game with pinpoint passing, perfect box kicking. He was it today, and add him in with Richie Mwanga. That was just pure class. That was like a Aaron Smith and Carter, in my opinion, kind of performance. Richie Mwanga today proved why he should be the 10 and D-Mac should be on the bench, in my opinion. This is nothing against D-Mac. Richie Mwanga took a hold of that game, took a grip of the game. He literally composed himself in moments I didn't think he would, and he proved why the Crusaders have won it this season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think with Richie Mwanga now, I don't necessarily think that DMAC had a bad game last week, but I think in terms of just the reason why I think Mwanga edges out for me over DMAC is probably a large reason is his kicking. I'm talking about goal kicking and then kicking in hand. His high balls were just phenomenal today. And I think you get guys like Tali under them, guys like Will Jordan, even when they weren't catching the ball, they were still disrupting it, allowing the players to get through to the breakdown, having a jackal as well. So like New Zealand under the high ball, it's almost like today we saw New Zealand do everything the Boks are so good and so dominant at. New Zealand just completely just flipped on its head and did that to the Springboks.
I think a massive part of it was Will Jordan for me. I think we saw last week New Zealand didn't fire on all cylinders, and that's why when Will Jordan comes in, I don't know how he does it because he goes from looking just like he's jogging to beating defenders like it's nothing. And he is somebody I think New Zealand are going to really wrap up and bubble wrap this Trophy Championship and say get him out of the World Cup because he is going to be a phenomenal player. And the way he just glided past players, glided through literally some of South Africa's forwards like it was nothing. It was just me. I just don't get how he does it. And I think he's got to be probably the best winger in the world just after Penno, in my opinion.
For me, it's more so a thing of like if you're looking at it, I think Will Jordan is the best winger in the world. I'm talking about try scoring record. I just think he can do more from an offensive standpoint than Penno. Like the way Will Jordan, for example, can spot a gap and exploit a gap. I don't think Penno can do that like Will Jordan. I think Will Jordan's proven he can do it consistently. Look at the Ireland test, the try he scored off the inside ball to Ardie Savea. But I don't think Penno's a sort of run the pitch type of player. I think Penno's more so like, do you remember that deciding try they scored against Australia to win last year? Like he's very good at the end of one-on-one play. He's amazing. But Will Jordan can just exploit anything. And I think the guy is on his way to being one of the best All Black wingers of all time. Like if New Zealand win this World Cup, I'm having him at like a Julian Savea, Rococo, sort of like John Kerwin level in terms of New Zealand status. I'm having him up there like he's just a G.
I think for me today, the All Blacks turned up. They knew the Saffers have been winning, and I think they just knew they'd come under the radar and they took them up front physically. I didn't see any physicality from the Springboks. No set piece.
Not in the second half.
South Africa's. No, I wouldn't even say there was a massive. I wouldn't say there's a massive shift in set piece. In the set piece, I wouldn't say there's a massive shift.
Okay, set piece, but I'm talking about like let's say for example in the breakdown, like I'm saying hitting back New Zealanders. Did you not see the difference in Mark?
Of course, there was a momentum swing. There's always going to be with that bench, right? But that bench didn't have the same effect as I thought they would. South Africa's front three literally stood up and held their own against, like I said, like they did, like I said they would do against the Springboks front three. They did it with literally perfection. The scrums, Faf de Klerk was waiting for the penalty, it was not coming. And do you know what? They can put their hands up and say, you know what, we are genuine contenders for this World Cup. And where do you see now, going into round three, the All Blacks go and the Saffers go? Where do you see them go?
Well, realistically,
what's the predictions?
Realistically, if we're going to be honest, I wanted to talk a bit about the World Cup. I think the advantage South Africa is going to have at the World Cup is this over New Zealand. If we're talking about forward packs and stuff, right? I'm going to mention Ireland in this as well. South Africa, I think the one advantage they're going to have over these teams is arguably depth in quality. I think Ireland, if you're looking at a front row in the world, if you're going to look at form, I'm going to have to honestly say that so far this year, the Irish front row has been the best front row this year. Porter, Sheehan, Furlong, right? But if you're looking at South Africa, Scotland, France or New Zealand in the quarterfinals, an England team that's going to have form and momentum, I don't think a front row lasts 4 games. So what will you need in terms of set piece dominance after those intensive games? You're going to need depth, right? And I think as bad as the South African front row is, they have another front row that can come on and do an equally good job. Where I'm concerned with New Zealand is, right, what do they have that backup replacement? Do Ireland have that backup replacement front row that's equally as world class? And I think when we talk about strength and depth, this is the advantage that the Springboks might have over these other teams. Because this World Cup, I think, New Zealand backline depth, no problem. 10, you have 3 world-class 10s. Mwanga, Barrett, and
you said that South Africa had this, this depth you're on about, right? Their team today was fully loaded. Where was their replacements that came on? Why did they not win the game?
Fully loaded.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why they didn't. I'll tell you why they didn't do it. The first half, the front row that they put on, the world-class front row, got blown out of the water.
Yeah.
Right? And then the props, that bomb squad, they kept calling it bomb squad. There's 2 bomb squads on the bench. Came on, they were chasing the game. Bomb squad only works if you're in a close, tightly contested game. Bomb squad, apart from that, doesn't work. If you play a bomb squad when you're 15 points down, you're going to lose the game because they haven't got the attritional game to win the game. They don't, and it's proved today.
But I think it's more so about the fact, like South Africa. I think would you say South Africa today, was it more so a tactical mistake? Them going, I'm not. This isn't an excuse. This isn't me saying New Zealand didn't deserve to win. But do you think if you're Rassie Erasmus, Rassie and Nienaber made mistakes against this New Zealand team, do you think that was maybe too much of a priority in terms of the forward pack and the physicality, and not enough in the back line, looking at young guys like Esterhuizen and Arenda in there? That's what I think. The rugby I'd love to see the Boks play. Why can't we play a combination of our physicality and what we played last week? Because if we do that, I'll ask you that question. How good will the Springboks be if they played a combination of that rugby? Could they win the World Cup if they played a combination?
If the Springboks can play the physicality up front with the backs and the pace they were playing with last week, there's not a team on this planet that can beat them. Until then, tactically, they've got it 100% wrong. I just don't see how there was no passion today, literally no passion stepping on the pitch. When you're putting this green jersey in, this whole thing about South Africa playing for their country, I understand, but then get up for the game, run into Ali Sarvea and fucking Muller him. Sorry, and Muller him, yeah? Like, don't stand there. Don't stand there and literally get sent back 5 meters and get shoved over by a hooker. This is what I mean about South Africa. They lack this passion, cohesion, and it's worrying times. So where do we see going into round 3? This is going to end out.
Well, I think South Africa at home, they didn't, like, let's be honest, against the Argentinian team. I think Argentina will put up a bit of a fight, but I can imagine South Africa are going to mix it up following this team. So I'll see South Africa taking the W, and New Zealand aren't going to lose to Australia. Do you think Australia will maybe have something to fight for in that final game and could maybe, I'm not saying cause an upset, but give New Zealand a bit of a game? Because we know Eddie Jones. I never like to write off Eddie Jones, but is this still the same Eddie Jones?
So it's New Zealand, Australia?
In Australia, yeah.
And then South Africa. Okay, so South Africa will beat Argentina, no questions asked.
Yeah.
I don't think Argentina
so
are going to put
inconsistent.
I think South Africa, you're going to see a response. In round 3, you're going to see a hefty physicality, nasty kind of response. And then I think New Zealand are going to beat Australia. That's how I think.
Convincingly, like a smash, or do you reckon that Australia?
Yeah, convincingly.
Yeah. I think maybe the fact this is a Bledisloe Cup game, huge atmosphere could play, but I don't see this New Zealand team winning. I think New Zealand win they've already won the rugby championship, I think. And yeah, so going forward for both teams, World Cup warm-ups, what are your expectations now? Do you think both teams should start to mix it up now?
I love annoying the keyboard warriors, and I've done it excellently today, right? But what you have to acknowledge on my side is that this performance doesn't change anything. I think this, if anything, this really pushes the Springboks on to go on and do better. So that's the worrying part of it. I think South Africa go on after the rugby championship, the rugby warm-ups, and I think they blow everyone out of the water. When it comes to finals day, and in the Rugby World Cup and all this, do I think they're going to be tired? Do I think they're going to be slow? Yes. I don't. It's different at the World Cup, but until then, I think they're going to blow most teams out of the water. Yes.
Yeah, same. I'm gonna have to agree. Yeah, I think we'll wrap up there. Thank you guys for watching. It's been Taddy and Kieran. That was our South Africa New Zealand reaction. Make sure to like, share, and comment and subscribe. And we're going to be back with another video soon. Thank you guys for watching. Cheers.